Today, we're going to dive into a story, but it's not a story from the past. Instead, think of it as a possible future, a chronicle of what could happen. We're talking about the Great Departure, the day humanity said goodbye to Earth. So, let's set the scene. The year is 2093, and the long, incredible story of humans on planet Earth, well, it's over. This isn't science fiction about some far-off galaxy. This is the story of what happened right here on the world we called home. You see, by this point, the very things we took for granted were gone. The planet just wasn't a safe place to live anymore. The air wasn't safe to breathe, the water wasn't safe to drink, even the ground beneath our feet had become hostile. Now, here's the real gut punch. This wasn't some asteroid, no alien invasion. It was us. A completely self-inflicted wound. A long, slow catastrophe that we built with our own two hands. An end like this doesn't just happen overnight. It started quietly. It began as a slow poison, a series of choices we made and warnings we ignored. So let's go back and see how it all started to unravel. It all began with a story that, well, it probably sounds a little too familiar. Scientists kept sounding the alarm, but their warnings were mostly treated like background noise. The economy had to grow, right? So the pollution just kept creeping up, year after year, until suddenly, the planet's thermostat wasn't just rising anymore. It was completely broken. And that slow creep, well, it finally hit a tipping point. And then things started to speed up a lot. The planet's systems, which had been pushed to the brink for so long, just started to give way, one after another. It was like a set of dominoes falling. First, in the 2030s, heat waves got so intense they were literally cooking entire cities. Then, by the 2050s, the world's glaciers, all of them, were just gone. And the result of all that melted ice? You guessed it. The oceans began to rise, and they didn't stop. The great coastal cities we know today, gone, swallowed by the rising seas. And if the floods didn't get you, the storms would. We're talking hurricanes and typhoons with a kind of power we had never seen before, wiping entire communities off the map in just a few hours. But the deadliest threat, the one that affected every single person every single day, was the air itself. Our atmosphere, the very thing we need to live, had turned into a poison. Just think about that number for a second. 5 minutes. That's how long you could last outside without a special breathing mask. Imagine a world where your kids can't play outside, where the simple act of taking a deep breath could be the last thing you ever do. When the environment collapses, human society is usually right behind it. All those systems and structures that we rely on to keep us organized, they start to fray, and then they just snapped. The change was stark. Governments, they just fell apart. Basic things like clean water or a little bit of food, those became the things people waged wars over. And your neighbors, they weren't friends anymore. They were competitors, rivals in a daily fight for survival. And in the end, everything humanity had built, art, laws, community, it all just faded away. Civilization wasn't a real thing anymore. It was just a story that the grandparents told. But for a very small, very select group of people, there was one last option. Not a plan to save the world, oh no. A plan to leave it behind for good. This was the last act in the human story on Earth. The plan itself was an incredible piece of engineering, but a total moral failure. Huge ships, basically space arcs, were built, but the tickets weren't for the best of the brightest. They were for the richest. The powerful few who, in many cases, got rich by helping to destroy the planet in the first place. Everyone else, they were just left behind. As the very last ship rose into the toxic sky, leaving billions to their fate, a single, final message was broadcast across the globe. A cold, heartbreaking goodbye. And that was it. Humanity became a species of refugees, having burned down its one and only home. The end wasn't a loud explosion. It was the quiet hum of a departing ship and the silence of a world left to die. But here's the most important thing to take away from this whole chronicle. A future like this, or any future for that matter, doesn't just happen. It's built. It's the result of millions of decisions, big and small, that we make every single day. So, as we pull back from this grim future, we have to ask ourselves a pretty urgent question. Is this story a prophecy or is it a warning? Because, the final page of our history, it hasn't actually been written yet. And that makes you wonder, is there still time to write a different ending?